The final step in our animation process is to render it. We need to get our animations out of Blender and into a format that we then can share or send to someone, or perhaps maybe even edit into a film or a television show. We need to get it out of Blender and into a format that can be integrated into other pipelines. Now, this process in Blender is really easy, and it's the final step in our very long animation sequence. And let me just walk you through it real fast. I think you're going to find that it's pretty self-explanatory and pretty easy. Now, it all begins over here inside of our properties bar. Of course, we have a lot of tabs here, and the one that I want you to look for is this one. It looks like a little printer with a photograph coming out the front. And this is going to change all of our scene properties, and specifically the output directory, where it's going to save our render. And this is important, right? The default is a temp folder. And on a lot of different computers, that temp folder, depending on where you installed Blender, it could be in some really weird places. So I like to know exactly where I'm going to be saving, or where I'm asking Blender to save my file. So let's just do it real fast. I'm going to click on my little folder icon at the end of this row. And it's going to bring open the Blender file browser. And I have a shortcut over here called desktop. I'm just going to save it on the desktop, and I'm going to name mine timing test, just to kind of get it out of the Blender and into a format that's understandable. So timing test, that's the file I'm going to be looking for on my computer. It's going to be saved on the desktop, so let's accept that. Now, we haven't rendered anything yet, but we've told the computer what to name the file, timing test, and where to save it on my desktop. The second step in this process is to choose the file format that we want the render to be in at the conclusion of the computer's job. And what we want for our class is FFmpeg video. This is an open source video format that's a pretty easy one to work with. It's once we get a little bit more experience rendering things, we'll look at some of these other image sequences. This is the best way to get the maximum quality. But if you're like working on Star Wars, then you're gonna need to do Cineon files, or a target sequence. But for us in this class, we want to keep the file sizes pretty small, pretty light, pretty manageable. So we're going to use this FFmpeg video. This is an open source video format it's pretty easy to use, and I think you're going to like it. It's going to require you to download the VLC video player, which is also an open source free video player that you can download from the web. I'll show you where to do that here in a minute. Okay, so FFmpeg, we're good to go. Leave the rest of these settings as is. Of course, naturally, we're going to want to render in color. You could render in black and white if you liked, but I like my color, so I'm going to do it in color. I also like to spot check all the rest of this stuff, specifically frame start and frame end. I'm going to render from frame 1 of my animation, way over here, all the way through frame 24. And the step is, it determines which frames in between to render. So at the step of 1, it's going to render every frame in between. If we were to put the step to 2, it would do frame 1, skip a frame, then do frame 3. It's like every other frame. Okay, so the rest of this frame rate's 24 frames a second, which is exactly what we're after, and we're pretty happy with the rest of these. Most of the time, all of this stuff is going to be set by your sequence, your animation timeline stuff down here, but it's always good just to kind of do a confidence check before we hit that magical render button. Now, the other thing that I would encourage you to do is to go up one icon in your properties bar to this little camera icon, and I would encourage you to activate motion blur, which is going to blur the animation frames across our timeline, and just starts to make it look a little bit more photorealistic. For the most part, you can keep the defaults to what they are. I increase the steps to 3, which just increases the quality of our motion blurs ever so slightly. With a step value to 3, for example, if I was on frame 10, it's going to look back 3 frames and forward 3 frames and start to blur that image a little bit to make it look like it's blending between. It just looks a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more realistic. I definitely encourage you to experiment and look at how these different options impact the quality of your final render. I think you're going to like it. Okay, so we have gone to the printer icon. We have changed the name of the file, and we know exactly where on our computer we're going to send it to. We've gone into the camera icon here. our scene settings, our render engine settings, excuse me, and we've added motion blur, which is pretty cool. The final step in this entire sequence is to actually render the animation. And it's so easy, it's hard. If we go to the very top of the screen here where it says render, we're going to choose render animation. Hit the button. Just give it a second to think about it. And you can see that the computer takes over and it's going to draw every single frame for us. It's calculating all of the information on our timeline. You can see the computer advancing the playhead automatically for us. And then once it stops and returns, you know it's done. Okay. Let's go ahead and get out of here. We can close this down. Now, if memory is served, I saved my animation to my desktop. And there it is, Timing Test MKV. That's the open source video file format. If you double click on it, there we go, got some error messages, so that's okay. And you can see, oops, something wrong with opening a file on my desktop. I apologize, but you can see that the file is working just as it should, just quite wonderfully inside the computer itself. Okay, so we've successfully rendered our first animation. This MKV file is what you are going to be uploading to Canvas, okay, in all of our assignments. So on every animation we make, we're going to be uploading the MKV file, the video file, for our graded assignments. Now, if you don't have the VLC media player, I definitely suggest that you go check it out. It's free, it's open source. If you do a web search for VLC, it's the first one. VLC Media Player is pretty much installed on every computer on the face of the planet. It's a powerful video player that will accept just about any open source file format, and I love it. It's a really great one. It's free. It's cross-platform. Doesn't cost you any money, and is supporting the open source community, which we should always be about. And so I definitely recommend that you download it. It's just about available on every platform on the face of the planet, and it's one of the most widely used video players in the world. So at the conclusion of our render process, okay, here inside of Blender, we've made some changes to our render settings. We've drawn the animation. We've saved it to a file, and through the VLC Media Player, we can preview that file and upload it to Canvas at the conclusion of this entire process.